Ignorance is bliss. Sometimes knowing too much is a burden. The burden of truth. Now, this is quite a tantalizing topic for me, as this subject has cycled my synapses quite a few times during my journey of awakening. And I'd like to share my experience with the burden of truth during my own awakening journey. Now, I went through a type of awakening, as we are all experiencing on some level, very quickly. I learned too much knowledge, and as I spoke about in my last video, um, are we slaves to knowing? Are we slaves to thinking we know? Right? That's where this comment comes. And thank you, my friend, for leaving this. This is perfect. Sometimes knowing too much is a burden. That's absolutely true, because I got caught in these. This is one of the types of cycles of suffering, which I speak about many times. Knowing too much truth, when you're caught in this illusion, knowing this too much truth and realizing it's hard to take in because you can't really do anything about it the way you want to when you learn it. And I went through this knowing what is actually happening to humans on planet Earth is a lot to handle, depending which level we're looking at it and what perspective we're using, right? That's why our perspective is so important. Being the observer, standing in the center of the circle, because if we get ourselves attached to too much knowledge, knowing, truth, it can be hard to operate. It throws us out of balance, as it did for me very severely when I learned that humanity is under this insane suppression of consciousness. When I learned the true diet for the human species, when I learned that almost the entire planet is eating themselves to death, this is hard to handle. And then knowing or thinking you know, as we talked about, or observing and thinking you know, observing what you can to the highest level that makes sense, and seeing what is happening and trying to help, trying to reach out to help, but you can't because a majority of us are stuck under a veil of illusion and a veil of ignorance on purpose. The ego is attaching them to knowing, so we cannot help them because they know. And when we talked about last time, when you think you know, you're trapped. You're trapped. The whole world thinks they know how to eat because medical doctors have told them and conditioned them their whole life, and TV and movies, that when we say no, actually we're supposed to eat like this, we can't take it in. That happened to me for most of my life. If someone tried to say you should eat all fruit 10 years ago to me, or all raw, I would have laughed. I was eating 6 eggs a day. Every day I was eating 6 eggs. I was eating way too much protein. I was eating meat and dairy, and it wasn't until I saw something that said that triggered within me that said, maybe it's healthier to not eat these things, based on some things I saw, right, in some documentaries. I removed dairy, and I started to feel better. My digestion was better automatically. Then I removed meat and protein. I started to learn about protein. So it's the burden of knowing. And then you find out these things, what you've actually done to yourself. This is just one of the many things we learn about. And we learn about how to help ourselves and heal ourselves. But it's hard to convey this to people who think they know. So how do we help those who are caught in these traps when we're the burden of truth, when we're stuck in the burden of truth? That's why it comes back to presence and detachment, because when you're staying present, you're surrendering and you're detaching from knowing and feeling any sort of obligation or burden toward knowing certain things. It gets a little complicated, I know. But the more we stay present, what is the greatest thing we can do to help anyone or the entire earth? Anyway, regardless of what we know or think we know or the truth, and we get caught in the burden, as I experience and many people have experienced the burden of truth. We come to the realization that we staying present in the eternal moment of God's love. I am God's eternal love pouring forth as much as possible, always practicing presence as your main focus, and purification, of course. This helps ease that burden of truth, because it can be extremely heavy. I am very aware of this. This tripped me up quite a bit on my path. The only path there really is, as we spoke about before, the path of purification and presence, the path of awakening, the path of becoming the divine vessel of the infinite creator. And this is how we can help people the most. We gain our wisdom through our cycles of suffering. We gain wisdom by going through the suffering, and then we can help others with that wisdom we gained. But how do we deal with all this truth? We have to stay present. We have to not get attached to it, because it's too much. If you try to hold yourself responsible for all the truth or knowledge or whatever that we know that is imprisoning most people, that is holding most people suppressed in a lower perspective, and you're not outwardly able to just grab someone and shake them and say, wake up, and then they do. You can't. That's not how it works. We don't have control over that. The biggest thing we have control over, or the illusion of control over, depending on your perspective, is presence and purification, and focusing on that and becoming the divine vessel. That's why they constantly throw these aggravators at us. That's why they throw too much information at us. That really confuses us. What happens when we shut it all out? As I talked in my previous video, how to reconstitute the mind. How did I reconstitute my mind? How did I clean out the junk? I had to shut it all out. I had to shut out information. Now, I wasn't perfect. Obviously, I got caught in the game. I still get caught in the game quite often. You know what I mean? It's okay. That's part of the journey. But recognizing we're caught in the game is big. I talked about in that video, reconstituting the mind. This is how we gain control of this burden of truth, the burden of anything, the burden of chemistry, as in one of my previous videos, the burden of chemistry, how they control humans through chemistry. This is a lot to know. This is the burden of truth. It's a lot to deal with if you're trying to reconcile it all on the ego, on the earth level. You know what I mean? I'm dealing with this on this level. You know what I mean? That's why it's so important through presence purification that we gain higher perspectives. It allows us to unglue ourselves from these types of burdens, from this overwhelming information, this overwhelming realization of what type of situation we're in here on Earth. It's wild. It's the situation we're on here. You can't think about it all the time. You'll drive yourself crazy. I did it. I drove myself insane about knowing what is happening with the medical system and the toxic food system, big pharma, and what's happening. That they've created a self-limiting population. Anyway, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. So if you're in the situation like my friend was in and I was in, where the truth is just too much. It's too much to deal with, because it's crazy, and people are suffering and they're stuck in these insane traps. Just relax and remember that everything takes place in divine timing. Everything's perfect. It's all just karma running off. It's all just nature running off. So just be the observer. Stand in the center of the circle. Try to relax. Take care of your body. Purify yourself. Remember that I am God's eternal love pouring forth. I am God in the eternal present moment. Namaste.